I look like I'm saluting you, Samia, which I kind of am, but I'm really trying to keep the sun out of my eyes. We're right here where I guess the White House meets the West Wing meets the press pool. This is where the press hangs out, and we spent the day in a very active and interesting press meeting, and a little bit of time we spent outside of the West Wing, where the president today, after a pretty busy day, welcomed an important visitor. His name is Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and he is the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. So that was quite a bit of pomp and circumstance, and I don't know if you were able to pull some of that video earlier today for your viewers, Samia. But it was quite a warm welcome. I didn't realize they pulled out the welcome mat like that for so many people. When we show up here, we're frisked, put through the x-ray machine, and when the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi shows up, it's quite a welcome. So we got to witness that. But probably the most important thing we were able to take part in today took place not here at the White House, but rather at the Capitol. And I know that you were covering this earlier today, especially because Phoenix was involved. And it was the 36th Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service held at the U.S. Capitol. It was a very, very emotional service today. And of course, sadly, Phoenix police were involved because we lost an officer last year, David Glasser, who was involved in a shootout, lost his life almost a year ago to the day. And today, in a very special event, his wife, Kristen, his 6-year-old son, Micah, and his daughter, Eden, were honored today, along with other fallen officers. And you might be surprised to hear this, but 118 law enforcement officers lost their lives in the line of duty in 2016. And today, when the president took to his speech at the Capitol, he was greeted with a very warm welcome. There's a lot of love going out towards Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, from the law enforcement community. And that might not be what he normally sees here when he's being covered by the press. Last week, arguably, you could say was the worst week for President Trump since he was inaugurated. It was a very rough week, and a lot of it was self-inflicted pain that he caused with the tweets he was sending out, and of course the abrupt firing of FBI Director James Comey. So it was a rough week when it comes to press and how Donald Trump was treated in the press, how he feels he was treated in the press. This week, all questions were, how is this going to go? Will Sean Spicer still be on the job? There was even a little bit of debate on whether Sean Spicer was going to be able to keep his job. So we all came into the press room, which is right here. And it was a packed house today, beyond packed. We were like sardines in a can of oil. And it was quite interesting because there was a delay because of the Crown Prince arriving. So the room was packed. Everyone was waiting. Who's going to come out? Will it be Sean Spicer? Sean Spicer came out and did his typical, job. He talked about what the president has coming up this week, what he was accomplishing today. And then the questions came in. I didn't hear any questions while I was in here about what President Trump said on his Fox interview late last week about potentially canceling the daily press briefing here. I don't think any questions were asked at all about that, so I don't know if that's kind of a done deal and that's not going to happen, or if people just took it as a threat that had no teeth behind it. So anyway, this is the press room, very quiet right now. Last time we were here, Samia, it was a little bit more full last year when we came to interview President Obama, but today, right now, it's pretty quiet compared to what it was like today. Can you hear me, Samia?
Yep, we have you live. How was it today? You were there when Sean Spicer took on the media.
I'm just rambling. I wasn't sure if you were there.
No, we're just listening
Pardon
very
me?
intently.
What was your question? I didn't hear it.
Well, I know a lot of the analysis after Sean Spicer's briefing today was the fact that he didn't take as many questions from reporters. What was the room like today?
As far as it was crowded. I mean, there were a lot of foreign press here, obviously covering. I think, was it John? Let me ask my photographer. Did you say 14 members? 13? From the United Arab Emirates here. So there were additional press here, and it was a very crowded room. A lot of people had questions that they weren't able to get in. I mean, to say that we were so crammed in, we were literally like pushed up against each other like this if you didn't have one of the seats here. I thought it didn't seem to be a hostile press room today. I mean, I thought the questions were pretty fair. We did hear some questions as it pertained to the quote unquote tapes that the president had tweeted out about having potentially with some of the meetings and appointments he had with James Comey. Every time a question like that was asked, Sean Spicer just avoided answering it and said, we're not going to answer that. You know where we stand on that. We've already addressed that. So basically, he really doesn't want to get any more questions like that. There were questions about a few questions about what was coming up this week. I know you've covered this as well with the cyber attacks that have happened, and just kind of how we can protect ourselves from that. And I know that we've been covering that on Fox News Now as well.
Right, and so you've been there. When did you get into D.C.? What's your plan for the few days that you're there? I mean, you attended that Trump event early this morning where a lot of officers were present. Kind of talk us through your schedule.
I got to tell you, let me tell you, we're here on special assignment, and we have a really special day set up for tomorrow, which I'm not going to get into a lot of details for a story that we're going to air later this week. So tomorrow's going to be a pretty packed day for us at the White House. Earlier today, we went to the U.S. Capitol for that memorial for the fallen officers. And, you know, as much as the president complained about the treatment maybe he received last week, some of it perhaps self-inflicted wounds with all of the tweets he was putting out, etc. He was getting a lot of love at the Capitol today. There were thousands of law enforcement officers there, even some families. Some family members who had lost a loved one in law enforcement in the past year. We even saw a woman who her husband died 3 years ago in the line of duty, and she comes back every year for this event. So he experienced a lot of love. There was a lot of love coming his way this morning at the Capitol. Of course, when you come back to the White House, it's not always the same game over here. So I think the week is starting out a lot smoother than last week ended, although I'm not sure things could go any rougher than last week ended. So I think so far we've got a really busy week on tap. The president has a very busy week, his first international trip abroad. He has not taken a trip abroad, and he will leave Friday, going to Saudi Arabia, followed by Israel, and then he will be heading to the Vatican, and then he will be heading to the G7 summit. So he's got a very busy week, and I think from what I'm gathering here, the White House, they want to have this be a smooth week. There were rumors, rumblings of perhaps a shakeup in the staffing at the White House, perhaps in the West Wing, perhaps in the communications department, but I'm not seeing that happening. Do you want me to stop walking backwards, John? I've got John walking backwards as we head back towards the West Wing of the White House, and I'm not sure if they're about to have somebody come out and speak, but it looks like cameras are set up here. And I love going live with you, Sambi, because we can just kind of wing it with you.
Right. I'm
It's
getting
so
some viewer
awesome.
questions coming in on YouTube, Kari. One of the questions frequently asked is, can we get a tour? Can you kind of just show us around where you are and kind of locate the buildings for people who haven't been on White House grounds before?
Yeah, let's do that. Well, obviously, the White House is right over there, and we're kind of looking at it from the north side of the White House. So this would be the northwest corner of the White House. Obviously, the other side is more of the private residence, and you can look out and see the monument, the Washington Monument back there. And then as John spins around here, the room we just came out of is where the press is. That's kind of the press pool, the James Brady press room. And then we've got the West Wing, which is right here. And this is where the president and all of his staff have offices, or many of his staff members have offices here, including Ivanka Trump, his daughter, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, communications folks are in there. And then we have the executive building over here, which is such a cool-looking building, isn't it? And this is where the majority of the White House staff are. I guess the really super VIP people have an office in the West Wing, and then you have the majority of the staff over there. So a lot of very important people who help run the White House are actually in this executive building. Now, right across the street, you can see some protesting going on. And there's always various protests going on around the White House. I'm not exactly sure what they're protesting at this moment, but just about a half a block away at the Blair House, where ambassadors will come to stay, foreign dignitaries will come to stay, they are expecting the arrival of Turkish President Erdogan, and he is going to be coming to the White House tomorrow. So his motorcade, just as my photographer and I were coming back to the White House, was about to come up to stay at the Blair House, which you can't really see from here. But he's literally about a half a block away from the White House. And there's quite a bit of security, as there always is in Washington, D.C., but there's additional security today.
Interesting. So the Turkish president on his way to D.C., that should be interesting to pay attention to because he's a controversial figure, you know.
That's true. And it was interesting. I saw a lot of people gathered on the street, and they were chanting or shouting. And I said to one of the Turkish members of the media, I said, "What are they protesting?" He goes, "Oh, no, they're not protesting. They're here supporting the president." And I thought, okay, that's interesting. You don't see that very often. So there were members. I don't know if they were people living here in America who were of Turkish descent or who they were, but they had waving flags and they were in full support of Erdogan's arrival, which has probably happened by now. I want to show you this, and I know from our last visit here, Samia, we kind of showed you this area where the press hangs out, and this is where they have their tents set up, and these are really sturdy tents, and I know that for a fact because we were here doing it during a wicked thunderstorm last year, and those tents managed to practically save our lives from the rain coming down and the winds. But these are pretty much permanent tents they have set up for all the various networks who do live reports from here. You know, this is their office space. We've got people back here sitting down. Hi, guys. They're sitting down waiting for their next appearance, their next live appearance, and this really is their office. So they have quite a view. Not many people get that view of the White House for their day job. And here we have a reporter back here who's actually going live, and we're not going to walk and ruin her live shot, but she's actually with one of the networks, and she's reporting live. And obviously we've got another member of the media who's probably waiting for his live report. So each of these little locations is set up with lighting, and if you kind of spin in here, John, you can see what's in there. And they're just a little studio, basically kind of a makeshift studio for folks in the media. And it gives them a little bit of privacy, too, so that, you know, they're not right next to the person and they're hearing everything that the reporter right next to them is saying, which can kind of throw you off a little bit. So this is the backdrop you're so used to seeing, right, whenever you see a live report?
You're right. That is the background that every reporter stands in front of.
So it was a pretty busy day. Tomorrow, let me come back here. We're going to come back towards the White House. Tomorrow, we are on special assignment. We're going to be bringing you a story. We're going to have some access to the White House that we're really looking forward to tomorrow, something that I've never seen and that I think my photographer, it'll be his first time, even though he's been here to the White House numerous occasions. We're going to be doing a special report that will actually air later in the week, but we're going to be coming tomorrow and doing quite a bit.
And I know it's a question that a viewer has asked jokingly, but someone asking if they can see the bush that Sean Spicer allegedly hid in. Those rumors, Lackway.
I don't know which one that was. I'd have to ask one of these guys out here covering it. I don't know. It was funny because during all of the pomp and circumstance of the prince coming from Abu Dhabi, thank you, the United Arab Emirates, I noticed they had a gardener trimming some of the bushes, and I thought, wow, at least, you know, the show must go on. I've got to get these bushes trimmed. So they had a gardener trimming bushes during the entire ceremony, the welcome and arrival ceremony for the Crown Prince. But I'm going to find out. I'm going to try to find out.
Yeah, if you could at least find out and maybe at least tweet a picture, I'm sure some of the viewers would like to see that bush.
There's actually desire. I could ask. I could just shout out and ask one of these people who cover this. You want me to give it a shot?
No harm,
let me
right?
find out. Excuse me. Were you here last week when Sean Spicer was hiding? No, you weren't here. All right. Well, that didn't work out. So anyway, that's just kind of a view of where our workspace today. I have to tell you, being here a year ago when we were with President Obama, And I did the interview with him, and he at the time said, oh gosh, no way are the American people going to choose President Trump or candidate Trump. And look where we are a year later. So much has changed. The White House, there's so much activity going on. And because we were in the waning days of President Obama's presidency, I think we were here about 6 months before he left office, the press had kind of thinned out. We were in full-on campaign mode, and so many of the people that normally covered the president had moved on. They were already covering the Clinton campaign, the Sanders campaign, Donald Trump's campaign, and at the time we still had other Republicans who were in the race as well. So a lot has changed in a year. A year ago, President Obama said there's no way the American people will choose Donald Trump. And here we are a year later with President Donald Trump, and there's so much news coming out of this place. There's so much activity coming out of this place. It almost feels like a completely different universe than the one that we were reporting from a year ago.
No, I do remember when you interviewed President Obama last year, and he did indeed say that Trump was not going to be president. How things have changed, Kari.
Well, a lot has changed, and I think a lot of people didn't see that coming. People didn't predict that Donald Trump would be president, but President Trump has, it's interesting because we talk a lot about bias in the press and how the press treats President Trump. Here we are kind of at the epicenter of presidential politics, where the press pool here covers day in and day out everything the president does. And a lot of people are saying he's not getting a fair shake. He's got zero honeymoon period. He hasn't had, they've not given, here we have an outsider coming in as president, and he has not been given a break in the slightest, that they're almost too hard on him compared to perhaps how they treated President Obama, especially in his first 100 days, first 3 or 4 months. I think a lot of it depends on where you're coming from politically. I think we kind of tend to think that people have a certain viewpoint and that they're covering him more I guess in a way that is unfair. I didn't see that today. I feel like I have seen that in the past. I've seen questions as we watch this daily. I know you watch it every day, Samia, where I think, wow, I wonder if they would have asked that question of then President Obama. But I thought today, overall, it seemed to be a pretty fair and balanced questioning, although it did end quickly. I don't think Sean Spicer took a lot of abuse today, as the president calls it, especially in his interview with Fox last week when he said that Sean Spicer gets a lot of abuse out there.
Right, and it's interesting that you bring up the media's treatment of Trump. I wonder, is it a difference in political ideologies, or is it because President Trump was an outsider? He didn't have the typical political background. I'm wondering if they would treat a different candidate that was Republican perhaps nicer because they had a political background or political resume.
That's an interesting point. In other words, he's an outsider. He is not part of the establishment, whether it be the Democratic establishment or the Republican establishment. So he's such an outsider that the Democrats hate him and a lot of the Republicans hate him. Some Republicans may be warming to him. But, he did refer to this place as the swamp. So if you realize that all of the people who work here and have worked here for some of them years or decades are now considered, I guess, swamp creatures, and here we have a new person coming in who's not familiar with this, then perhaps you could say they're angry with him for that.
Perhaps, Kari. Well, we appreciate you giving us the tour of the White House grounds and hanging out with us. And let us know if you track down that Sean Spicer push.
I'll try to find it. I will say this about security here. I put my water bottle down just so I could walk around and show you that. And it's disappeared already. My water bottle and pen, like that, gone. They don't let anything sit around here.
You have to keep the White House grounds safe. You never know. That water could be something else, Kari.
I guess. I just set it down in an area that we were okay to be in, and then I turned around and it was already picked up and gone, whisked away. It's evidence somewhere, I guess.
Better safe than sorry.
We're going to be reporting tonight. We're going to be reporting tonight at 5 and 9, and then we're going to be here tomorrow as well working on a special project that we have some kind of interesting access to cover, and we're really looking forward to bringing it to our viewers.
All right, Kari, thanks for checking in with News Now. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll check in with you once again.
Thanks. All right, thanks, Sami. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Kari Lake live at the White House. I want to go ahead and give you guys one quick look, a live look at the White House, courtesy of Fox News. That is a wide shot of the White House. We appreciate